Welcome to another episode of New Game Plus. I'm your host, Jason, as always, and it's another great episode. It's another, I don't know, it's a strange one. So we go from co-op shooters to cyberpunk games to Attack on Tennis, and I've given away my joke by saying that, but it is Remnant from the Ashes is our first review, goes into like Australian Open Tennis 2, which is actually what it is as opposed to my stupid joke, and we do a bit of a discussion on cyberpunk games. So there's lots of cool stuff to see as always, but for now, something completely different.
Hello and welcome to Fireside Reviews. I'm your host Liam, and today I'm talking about... Oh, sorry, we're using the multiple cameras we have at RMIT. Okay, switch cameras. Wait, how am I supposed to tell which one to look? No, let's just go. Okay, so today I am talking about The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Disappeared, a fantastic book by Jonas Jonasson. It was not turned into a film, a Swedish film, which was excellent. They then made a sequel to the film, a 101-year-old man who skipped down the bill and disappeared. Then the author wrote another book, which was a sequel to this one, not the film, didn't follow the story of the sequel. Confused? Oh well, so am I. Alan Carlson is the 100-year-old man in this book who goes off on a bit of an adventure after escaping to avoid his 100th birthday party. And as he goes off on this misadventure, we get sort of a foray into his life, and he's sort of stumbled through history. Think a European Forrest Gump. So it's a little bit cleverer, a little bit darker, a bit more twisted, and it is fantastic, both the book and the film. And I really, really enjoyed them. I've just finished reading the sequel, which is the Accidental Further Adventures of the 100-Year-Old Man, and it's a 400-odd page book that I read in 2 days because I just kept having like, okay, I've got to read another chapter, and every couple of pages, every chapter ending had a great zinger to finish it off, and it's just a wonderful series, both the movies and the book. Don't let the fact that it's a Swedish movie with lots of subtitles turn you off. It is excellent, great fun.
So one of the things that we've waxed lyrical on recently is Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass. And yeah, I could go into hours discussing how good a value that is again, but I figured I'd get a little bit more specific because one of the games that I've been playing on there is called Remnant from the Ashes, and it came out last year to basically no fanfare. I wasn't even aware it existed as a game until I saw it on the Game Pass thing, and I'm like, I'll give it a go, see what it's like. Okay, I'm going to say this to you, and I mean it with absolutely no disgust or anger in my voice. It is the most derivative game I think I have ever played. And yet it nails it. It nails exactly what it's going for. It is the Dark Souls of cooperative third-person shooters. And that's, no, but legitimately, the reason I say that is because it actually is fucking Dark Souls. You go to campfires or you go to respawn points, and that resets the enemies in the dungeon, or it resets the enemies in the overworld. And then you go through that, and then when you go to fight bosses, you have to walk through like smoke to walk in and fight the bosses. It is legitimately the Dark Souls of third-person shooters. And it nails what it's going for. Like, I'm having so much more fun with this game than I thought I would. And maybe it's because I'm at that point where I'm like, I just wanted something that I could turn my brain off to, have fun, have enough of an interesting story to keep me going, have the co-op experiences with friends if they want to jump in or out, have kind of the semi-class-based warfare, like it steals a little bit from Destiny, and the design aesthetic kind of, it reminds me a little bit of kind of Stargate. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that I'm like, this is actually, like, I can see what it's doing at every single time. It's not done anything yet to me that makes me go, this is a unique experience. This is something that I'm going to go, wow. But it's great schlock. It's great fodder. And I think one of the things that I lament over the last few years is the lack of the B game. You either have an indie gem darling that's designed well or is a point-and-click adventure, or you have some AAA over-focused experience. And you can tell that the focus testing is, you can tell we want to make a game that's like X, but does this, but does this, but does that. And yet it doesn't feel contrived. And that, in and of itself, is a strength. As much as I love to talk about all the unique experience that gaming has provided me, sometimes you can just do well seeing what other people do well and saying, I want to make that, but try something different. And that's Remnant from the Ashes pretty much summed up. But there's another game that actually does something very, very similar. And I figured I'd bring Matt in because we both got a code for this. Hunt the Showdown. I'm pretty sure that's the name of the game.
Hunt Showdown.
Hunt Showdown.
In Japan, it's probably called Hunt the Showdown.
Yeah, Maximum the Hormone. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Slacked in there somewhere, but yeah.
So basically that game's a little bit different in that it's a I want to say it's a Monster Hunter game with battle royale elements. Is that probably an easiest way to kind of throw it out there?
Takes elements of Monster Hunter where you get thrown into an overworld where you got to go search for clues to hunt for a monster. A couple of PvE elements there, and also seems to have some sort of like temporary, also like NPC character style function like Zombie U, where you have a character and they can result in permadeath at some point in time, and you get replaced by a completely new person, and you have to go back and grab loot, things like that.
So because it does like it's the track 3 elements, but you can randomly stumble across them, which is Monster Hunter 3. It's like, find the Anjanath, follow the 3 points and find the Anjanath, or just lol, he just happens to be here.
Find the angry pickle.
Exactly.
And if you don't find him in time, he'll find you.
Correct. But unlike Monhun, where it's say like a team of 4, well, you can have your team of 3, but you can also have 4 other teams of 3, or up to 12 people chasing after the bounty. So it adds that element of there's that PvP shooter element to it. But yeah, if you get killed before you exfiltrate, and every map technically takes an hour. You can have 1 hour on a map to find the item, blah, blah, blah. So you can rush for it and run for it, but if someone sees you and they've got a sniper rifle, pop, you're dead, and that's it. Your character's gone. So you lose your items, you lose everything. They can loot your body, take whatever you've got. So it becomes that question of, I'm doing some low-level like things, the payout isn't great, I'm going to pick one of my backup characters, one of my bloodline characters, and that's the way they transfer kind of XP and traits along the lineage. So it does that kind of proc gen thing while still allowing you to have the permadeath option and all that. It's a great concept. My biggest problem is I'm not convinced that, it's going to come based on the strength of the community.
Yes.
And is the community there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's my worry for it.
With most games that rely heavily on PvE elements and PvP elements at the same time, it really lives or dies based on how many people are playing and how much of your concurrent user base is playing at that point in time. And while it is a fantastic concept, it is a concept that has already been explored several times, but not in the way that Hunt Showdown does. And I'm excited to see that. I would love to see more people playing it because it does deserve that much, because it is the most gamey game that Crytek has made so far. Like, a lot of people give Crytek criticism for making an engine and then a tech demo second, and like games like Crysis and stuff, it's very much true.
And by the end of the Crysis series, they tried to bring it back by having like an overarching story and stuff like that. And
but not many people cared by that point.
Exactly. So it becomes that thing. Again, my only issue is they've kind of diluted it by having a pure battle royale option in there as well. Like, the other mode is the battle royale option, and it's
the
like
quick play.
The quick play, and that's fine if you just want to pick up. Like, it's literally you pick up a character with like randomized skills and randomized weapon, and then you put it into the world, and you have to try and fulfill the same objectives. So there is still a bit of fun to be had there. My question becomes, like, in a game that also has real world currency on top of, like, is it going to have the whale problem? Is it going to have the problem where someone says, I'm willing to put $1,000 into this game, buy all the good like weapons, buy all the good traits, like I can just buy multiples of this same weapon? Does that make me a little think? But at the same time, like, I'm really keen to give it a go, especially in these first few weeks of its launch, because I want to see if they can make it work. Plus, the rifle's called a Winfield, and I mean that's about as Australian as it gets. So
it is pretty Aussie, yeah.
So it's a Winnie rifle. I got a Winnie blue rifle. So I don't know. I'm keen to still give it a go. I really think that at least I've tried something, as much as it is derivative. Like you said, like we've said, it's Monster Hunter by way of battle royale, by way of like the permadeath.
But all the parts,
something different.
I know. But all the parts make sense. Like, they're not just throwing it in there, going like, okay, this is popular, this is popular. The cynic in me would like to think, battle royale. But at the same time, it has its place, and it really kind of intensifies the combat. How dynamic every situation is approached. You can go and hunt the enemy, hunt the PvE elements, and then the smarter groups will go over and wait until they collect the token or collect the bounty, and then pick them off and grab the bounty.
They haven't hand waved it. Like, the setting works. It makes sense for what they're trying to do with the game.
I love how just bleak and swampy everything is. It's awesome.
So it really, So I mean, I guess that is the nice part of it, is that it really seems like they at least they didn't just hand wave it. They thought about, how do we combine these elements? Here's how we've done it. It's similar to Remnant from the Ashes. So I guess it just goes to show you that just because your game's derivative, it doesn't inherently make it bad.
Well, it doesn't inherently make it bad. I mean, if you've got aesthetic and vision, then that's what you carry your game with. Yeah,
exactly that. So I guess there you go. So if there are games that you're looking to check out, and you don't necessarily have to be blown away by the uniqueness or the engaging, strange qualities of it, but it just does stuff that's solid and makes sense. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a good B movie in this world, and I think Remnant from the Ashes and Hunt Showdown are exactly what you're looking for. Now, one of the big delays of the year is 2077 Cyberpunk, or Cyberpunk 2077 if you actually pay attention to it, which is CD Projekt Red's follow-up to The Witcher. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things going around about that, about the delay, and about how they still want to crunch people for 6 months and all that kind of stuff. And that's all, it's very interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it comes out at the end of the thing and what it means for gaming culture and all that. But man, everyone just wanted to play some Cyberpunk. Hey, and there's never been a better time to be a Cyberpunk fan, especially recently. There's been some fantastic games and some okay games that have come out that are Cyberpunk themed that I figured we should discuss in a little bit more detail. So one of those games, Ruiner. Now, Ruiner is you take the place of random protagonist. I forget if he actually has a name in it. That's how forgettable he is. Who gets taken over by the girl, to help her ascend to a place called Heaven, kill God, I guess. He's called the boss, but I mean, it's God. And to do so, you've got to through all the different areas of New Renkoch. And so it's an interesting idea, executed not great. Like visually, it is stunning. It is so arresting how well they've done the visuals. It's the big flashes of red and the way that they tie this kind of overwhelming, borderline steampunk at times world into this like cyberpunk dystopian nightmare. And the characters you meet are all suitably integrated. They've got like mechanoid kind of implants and all that kind of stuff. And the way it comes to terms with pushing you through all these areas, it does it in a shallow story sense, but like just arresting visuals. And the problem is it doesn't play great either. So it plays like a kind of isometric. It's meant to be like a stick shooter, but it also has melee mechanics. And the problem is the melee mechanics are tied to which direction you're looking in. So instead of it being slash, use the sticks to aim when I just want to shoot guns, it's both. You have to aim while you're both like hitting melee and shooting guns. So it plays well enough that the experience doesn't the gameplay doesn't sour you on getting through the game and experiencing it all. And yeah, it's shallow. If anything, it sets up a world that it doesn't capitalize on, and a Ruiner 2 would hopefully go into that in more detail. But it's still an enduring cyberpunk romp, especially from that aesthetic point of view. But if you want something that's a little bit more cerebral, I guess, Red Strings Club is probably the game that you're after. And Red Strings Club has an interesting premise. You pour drinks to activate a certain, be it a fear or a certain emotion in whoever you're talking to try and extract information out of them. In a world of, cyber changed people, it's a really human way to try and break through that. So they're doing that interesting dichotomy. Early on in the game, you meet a robot, I guess an android, who has an empath chip inside of it. So how the gameplay works is you pour a drink for someone, ask them questions, try and understand more about the world or follow your particular aim. So let's say you want to find out what's going on with this secret organization, or you want to try and find more out about a certain person. There are better ways to do it. There are ways to do it. So you would activate someone's fear response and then make them fearful and make them spill information that you want. Or you can go the other route and go the compassionate, like activate their compassion or their joy or their pride, and then ask them questions that play into that. So it's a really interesting way to do that kind of thing. And the way it's called the red string because the way it tracks the story is that a red string follows each point. You can do each point, say, 3 or 4 different ways, but the red string follows the way you do it. So it's a good way to go back at the end of it and go, oh, I could have gone a different way with this, or I could have gone a different way with this. At the end of each interaction, you'll be asked questions by the empath bot. Do you think that X person is a psychopath? Do you think they're physically attracted to you? It's pretty Blade Runner-y. Like it's like sitting there through that kind of test and going, am I a human at the end of it kind of thing. And I was just amazed at how, for a game, I normally don't like those kind of games to begin with. I'm not huge on point and clicks, and it's not really a point and click, it's more just a conversation narrative game. But they make it such an ingrained part of the experience that I think it's worth going through at least once. I think you could go back and play them all and drive yourself crazy, but I think going through it once, following your path on it, it's that kind of game. Follow your path, don't go through it again unless you really want to see another outcome. The third game that I'm really going to go into detail on, NeoCab. Now, NeoCab, you come to the new town, legally distinct from Los Angeles, of course. It's set in the near future, and you're an Uber driver. You're not an Uber driver, though, are you? You're called something different. Like you're called a NeoCab driver, who is the last one of the last drivers that hasn't been overtaken by automatic cars who are pushing people out of their jobs, and it's interesting to see how it takes a lot of the current conversations or even previous conversations around, labor and, automation and all those kind of things and tweaks them with a new focus. Like, there's a group that are against the idea of people owning cars because they're dangerous, and it's basically an analog for the gun debate, but put through the vision, through the kind of the lens of cars. And it does a really good job when it's doing that. I think sometimes some of the interactions are a bit contrived, and the way that the game tracks that is through basically a mood ring on Lena's arm that tracks how you're feeling, and therefore it can cut off certain options and certain questions. So if you're too angry, you can only respond with the angry response. If you're too calm or you're too sad, you can only respond with the sad response. And it's a good way to kind of track mood, but also follow what you feel is true to not only the character, but to your own personal beliefs in it as well. So it's an interesting thought experiment in how to deal with this. Plus, there's the ticking clock of finding your friend who's gone missing and all this other stuff. So I don't know. I was genuinely surprised with the kind of the spread of games that I have here. There's 2 of them that are conversation simulators, and the way they do it is a bit more philosophical. There's Ruiner, which is just balls to the wall action, but just done so strikingly aesthetic. But there's some other great games out there as well that do a similar thing. 2064, as much as I didn't necessarily like the overall game, I still think it does a good enough job on touching those themes. And there's a bunch of other great little Cyberpunk games as well. I still want to give Valhalla a shot. There's a heap of good ones. So I would say that the 6-month gap that is from now until the release of Cyberpunk, there is plenty of things that can fill that space. And Cyberpunk's not exactly something that video games are afraid of. Deus Ex, plenty of other great examples. So even going back into the history and playing Cyberpunk games, there's plenty out there. But these are just a few that I've seen in the last few years come up that I thought might be worth checking out in advance of what is probably going to be another pretty good game from CD Projekt Red. They have enough of a reputation. But I guess with that, we shall see. Now, I was super excited, you see, like it comes down around time for the tennis to come to Melbourne, and I was, oh wow, great. And I saw they were advertising a game, and it was AOT, and I'm like, whoa, what the hell? Like, there's like a crossover game between Attack on Titan and, no, it's just Australian Open tennis. So with that disappointment in mind, I was actually surprised to see just how good a game Attack on Tennis was, because realistically, it's made locally. I'm pretty sure it's Big Ant who make it. And so, of course, that comes with certain limitations. When you've got the FIFA license, when you've got the Madden license, you literally have the purse strings. That game will make $1 billion. So EA will give you $300-400 million to make it because they're going to make so much profit on it that they don't care. It still shows that it's hard to do a game with 20 odd people on the field because the engines really struggle with it still, and they've got all that money to go into it. So for Big Ant to make a game that plays as well as it does and represents the Australian Open experience as well as it does is very commendable. That said, there are still a few kind of polish issues that I would reckon the game suffers from that will be picked up in next iterations. Realistically, a lot of they'll do some scenes where they zoom out of the ground and they'll take video of where the Batman Avenue road for the city-linked areas and stuff, and I know it because I live here, but you look at it and it's just a bland road. And they obviously haven't focused on putting textures or obviously haven't focused on making a big deal out of it, which is fine because they obviously spent all that time doing the actual tennis engine. Now, occasionally I've had glitches where the game will like hard stutter. I've had ones where the physics of the shirts will screw around and stuff, so suddenly everyone's wearing midriff tops. But as a general rule, the way they've done the tennis is pretty simple. And it's simple but effective. Top spin style, you've got slice, you've got top spin hits, you've got drop shots, you've got lobs. Basically what you expect out of a tennis game. But the emulation engine's pretty good. You can turn up the level of support and what's what I'm thinking of, assists that the characters have in the game. And most of all, it's just fun. As a result, the game feels really fun. Doubles is a bit balked because of how fast everything travels. But that's kind of always the problem with doubles. But the game did make me think, though, considering its origins, there are so many sports games out there that just really, really get underappreciated. So I thought I'd bring Card on to discuss. I guess we can even just tennis alone. We don't even need to expand outside of tennis. There's been so many good tennis games and genuinely good, I guess, representations of tennis that weren't actually serious business tennis games. I mean, Mario Tennis, for one, Game Boy Color and 64, for different reasons, are both very good games, but also very good tennis games.
Yeah, so I think I guess when it comes to tennis games, you really kind of got to think about, okay, what are you in the mood for? For me, I'm a sucker for Sims. I'm a sucker for the arcade style, and it all comes down to what you prefer at that point in time. When Australian Open rolls around, you kind of want to get into the Sims a little bit, really. So AO Tennis 2 is a fairly solid entry in the series. Definitely improves upon its fault on the faults of the first game. Haha. Not a double fault this time. Haha, get it? I like tennis. But a lot of other games as well, like Virtua Tennis. Like we got
Virtua Tennis is the classic. Virtua Tennis is probably the one of, it's still arcadey, but it's serious enough. They had it as, obviously it was an arcade game in the Dreamcast era as well. It had Philippoussis and all these random people.
But you know how tough it is to translate a game with sim qualities into the arcade, and they did that with Virtua Striker. But Virtua Tennis is that gold standard.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, Top Spin, as I mentioned in the review, is another one that really comes to mind with Microsoft making it as well, as well as Microsoft platforms. But it is interesting to see how obviously racing games have moved towards sim. Like even Need for Speed nowadays is
even a lot of Need for Speed games. Even some of the reboots like Most Wanted have steered more towards the sim angle with sim handling, and developed by Criterion, who are well known for their arcade games.
And so Criterion have just got that back as well. So it was Ghost Games for the last 3, I think, and then
nobody played them.
Nobody played them. No,
it sucks, but nobody played them.
It's true, and so I think it's that thing of there's a lot of times there's sports that I would play a video game of, but I wouldn't play them. Tennis is one. Soccer's another. Again,
I think we all played Sega Soccer Slam.
Yeah. So, oh my God,
awesome.
Because everyone instantly, when you think of like arcadey soccer, Red Card's another one that comes to mind. There's a few arcadey
Sensible Soccer.
Sensible Soccer. Sensible Soccer, even for its day, was trying to do a more realistic representation of soccer, even if it was like the top-down silliness. And even we had Super Soccer and we had all the SNK games. But I think there are certain games that I prefer to play arcadey, like as we've discussed, and so NBA suffers from that as well. There's like 6 NBA games. There's like the one that 2K makes, which is the realistic one where the ball floats out of people and stuff. But I mean, like, I would still kill for a good NBA Jam any day of the week. Like, I love NBA Jam.
And they do bring them out every now and then. You've got also the games that aren't named NBA Jam, but effectively the same, like courtside, things like that. So
Showdown.
Yeah, Showdown as well. But I do also like to jump on that other side of the spectrum when Australian Open's not around. I still like playing tennis games. I used to play it when I was younger, but I also love some of those arcade style games. So Mario Tennis for one, I'm a big sucker, and one of the good things about AO Tennis 2 is the career mode. Reminds me a lot of Mario Tennis, where you've got like certain the RPG stylings and the silliness there. So definitely play the Game Boy Advance version and the Game Boy Color version.
So that is actually a good point to expand on quickly. Is so the way Attack on Tennis works is that you, I'm going to keep calling it that.
Okay.
Is that you basically you have the skills you pick up in the match, and that fixes your stamina, your reflexes, all that kind of stuff. But then for skills, you pay for skills, like you pay for training kind of thing. So I don't hate the way that they split the XP and the money, and I think that works. But again, it just super reminds me of like Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Color. Like that was such a game that was such ahead of its time, and it's a shame that Camelot's been reduced to making the one for Switch and stuff.
Mario Tennis Aces was actually pretty good. Like the foundations are there.
But it just relies on power hits too easy.
It relies on power hits, and it's effectively a fighting game where it's all meter management. I would absolutely kill for a new like Anna Kournikova Smash Tennis. Don't call it Anna Kournikova, just call it just Smash Tennis.
Anna Kournikova, you're showing your age.
I am showing my age. I am getting old. I'm now 13.
Yeah, so. I guess that is the question. Like for me, I think another NBA Jam is always welcome. There's even arcade hockey games and stuff now. So I guess there's obviously, it's such an easy genre to make. It's like making a casino game. You're always going to make your money back on it. But I'm actually surprised at how well Attack on Tennis keeps up with the other ones. Like I would have thought, being Big Ant, being the restricted budget and all that.
Given the budget and everything, they've pulled out a tremendous effort. So honestly, I think that's commendable.
There you go. Well, on that note, that is the end of another episode. We are at match point. I'm going to stop doing tennis puns. It's done.
That was awful.
Shush. We will go to newgameplus.tv with everyone else just to check out more videos and more cool stuff that we do. Newgame Plus TV at Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, all that good stuff. And we will hopefully see you guys next week.